On Saturday, May 15, 2021, in a remote rural area of the Patagonian province of Neuquén, Argentina, news of a terrible crime reached residents. Agostina Giffman, 22, was found lifeless in a vacant lot where people threw their trash like it was just another waste. An unknown killer dumped the body and set it on fire in an attempt to cover up the evidence of the crime. However, the sloppiness of the perpetrator and the technology used by the investigators made it possible to find the culprit, but then something much more sinister came to light. Behind the murder of Agostina Giffman was a kind of criminal organization. The gruesome details of the case that came to light during the trial of the accused caused an indescribable shock to the public that continues to this day. Agostina Giffman was born in Neuquén, but at an early age moved with her family to the town of Cipolletti, located in the province of Rio Negro. Her parents were a young couple who were barely 20 years old when they found out they were expecting a daughter. According to her father, Agostina was a source of great joy in the Giffmans' lives from day one, filling their days with the brightness and new energy she radiated. These qualities allowed Agostina to easily find common ground with others, and she had a wonderful ability to make friends. That was how she preferred to spend her days, always being surrounded by her comrades. However, these relationships were not always what her parents had hoped for, especially during her teenage years when some of the people who came into her life turned out not to be the best company. At the age of only 15, Agostina began to show changes in her behavior that caught her parents' attention, and it wasn't just the tantrums she might have had like any other teenager. The problem was much more serious. After a while, Agostina's parents found out that she was using psychoactive substances. They could not believe that their daughter had chosen such a path, because at home this topic was not even discussed. As a result, quarrels between family members became more frequent, trying to curb the problem and reduce the seriousness of the situation. Agostina's parents decided to lead restrictions and prohibitions regarding evening walks. They also tried to forbid her from continuing to date some of the people she had dated before, but all to no avail. Any interference led to a strong quarrel with Agostina and increased her desire to run away from home. Eventually, that moment came in April 2018. Agostina met a young man named Martin, with whom she fell madly in love. Literally within a couple months, in June of that year, the relationship grew into an engagement and then marriage. It was a chance for Agostina to start a new life without the scrutiny of her parents. However, as an adult, she needed to gain independence, including financial independence. With her inherent entrepreneurial spirit, this did not prevent her from freeing herself from the oppression she felt her parents had placed on her while she was under their care. She was able to survive by doing different jobs, but things took a turn for the worse when in 2019, at the age of 20, she became pregnant. The young couple had to reassess their finances. By the time the baby was born, Agostina eventually made the radical decision to offer her body in exchange for money to earn extra income, despite the dangers of the activity. In April 2021, Gustavo Koenig, the owner of an auto repair shop, received a message from an old friend, Juan Carlos Monsalve. Juan was a cab driver who also sold fruits and vegetables. In the message, Monsalve said he wanted to meet a young woman for an intimate relationship. He was looking for an extramarital affair. Without hesitation, Gustavo, knowing what the city had to offer, responded to the man's request. He used his connections and arranged the meeting as Juan had requested. Carlos' fulfillment of the cab driver's whim turned out to be Agostina Giffman, a man almost 30 years older. Agostina agreed to meet in a motel, where the intimacy that the man dreamed of took place. But this was not the only meeting, and soon Monsalve began to seek the services of the girl more often, at least until one event interrupted the dynamic that had developed over a short period of time. During one of these visits to the motel, Agostina took a picture of herself in front of a mirror with Monsalve in the background. Unbeknownst to her, the photo began to spread among the locals and, predictably, it went viral. Eventually, the photo fell into the hands of Ana Maria Perales, the wife of Juan Carlos Monsalve. As she was opening the front door of the house after running a few family errands, the woman's cell phone alerted her to the arrival of the message. She never imagined that opening it would reveal evidence of her husband's infidelity. Although this was not the first such incident in their relationship, Ana Perales felt she had had enough. Consumed with rage, the woman waited until Monsalve arrived at the house to tell him that she no longer wished to continue the relationship and was going to leave the house with her son. She also did not want to continue caring for him as he demanded, which was due to Monsalve's progressive deterioration in his physical condition caused by his diabetes. After these threats, the man begged her not to leave him and promised that he would do everything possible to repair their relationship. Ana Perales then assured him that the only way to convince her to stay in the house and preserve the relationship was to take care of Agostina's murder. Juan Carlos did not hesitate to accept the conditions set by his wife in order to put the offense of her adultery behind him and set in motion a monstrous plan. The first obstacle Manzelva had to overcome was the whereabouts of Agostina. Although the cab driver had seen her on several occasions, he had no contact with her, much less knew where she lived. It was always his friend Gustav Kajanic who organized their meetings. Therefore, he had no other choice but to contact him again. Manzelv confessed to the man the reason for his desperate search, and Gustav promised that he would do everything possible to find the 22-year-old girl. On May 11, 2021, in parallel with this search, Ana Perales not only left home with her son, but also moved to San Javier, a town near Centenario where she had previously lived with her husband. The situation left Manzelv desperate, and he went to great lengths to show his partner that he was ready to win her back. 3 days later, with the unspoken complicity of several people, the would-be monsters caught up with their victim. On May 14th, after 5:30 p.m., Gustav Kajanic contacted Juan Carlos Manzelv by telephone and told him that with the help of several people he had managed to find out Agostina's whereabouts. Then the plan they had conceived began to take shape. Before it could be carried out, however, it was necessary to decide who would carry it out. Eventually, the men, who had been hunting for several days, came to an agreement. Kajanic contacted Agostina and informed her that Manzelv wanted to meet her again for intimacy. Necessity once again made the girl agree to the proposal, believing that it was another opportunity to get more money. As a result, the meeting was set for 7:20 p.m. the same day. Agostina was to wait for a man to pick her up at the roundabout at the intersection of Highway 151. In the time it took to get picked up, she took her young daughter to her mother to watch her. And when 7 o'clock came, a friend picked her up in his car to take her to where she was supposed to be. A few minutes later, at the specified time, Agostina was at the specified place. At that moment, a black car was becoming near her, and the girl got into it. Immediately the horror began. The car driven by Juan Carlos Manzelv began to move away from the city, until it drove into an open field where no one could see them. As soon as they stopped, the man began brutally beating the girl inside the car. Although Agostina tried to defend herself, the force with which the man delivered each blow was unbearable. Within minutes, the 22-year-old girl lost consciousness. Although Manzelv's arms were still mobile, the deterioration of his legs due to illness made it impossible for him to continue traveling alone. So Juan Carlos called his nephew and an employee who worked at his vegetable store to help him finish what he had started. Manzelv drove to another open place where residents of nearby houses were dumping garbage. At that time, another vehicle appeared with accomplices. The men whom Manzelv had called helped to lower Agostina's unconscious body. Then they all together continuously stabbed the girl until they were satisfied that they had taken her life. However, not satisfied with this, they threw the body into a pile of garbage and set it on fire to destroy the evidence. A few hours later, when the city was in darkness at night, Juan Carlos Manzelv returned to the scene of the crime to make sure that his victim was indeed dead. After waiting for hours for the girl to return home, her family began to worry about her absence, and despair overwhelmed them. In the end, they decided to contact the police. However, it was not until the next day that a man who made his living by picking up trash discovered Agostina Giffman's body. As soon as the terrible news became known, investigators began work to find out the circumstances of Agostina's death. As a result of a complex autopsy of the body, which was in serious condition, it turned out that in addition to being burned, the girl received a lot of stab wounds, hitting vital organs. At the same time, officers questioned the last person who had seen the girl alive the day before. A friend who had given Agostina a ride in his car to the rendezvous point provided the coordinates where he had left her alive. Thanks to this information, the police were able to access the CCTV cameras installed in the area. In this way, Agostina's last movements before she was abducted into the black Chevrolet Tracker car that came to pick her up were established. In addition, it was possible to establish that the Chevrolet belonged to a car rental company, and that it was rented by Juan Carlos Manzelv at 6 p.m. on May 14th. The officers were then able to trace their route to the open field where Enzo Manzelv and Maximiliano Zapata also went to take part in the murder. All of this footage, including the moment of the burning, was captured by CCTV cameras scattered around the city. Without wasting time, the investigators got on the trail of the killers. Juan Carlos Manzelv was found the same day in the town of San Javier, where his wife had moved after the separation. At the time the police arrived on the scene, the man was washing his car to make sure no traces were left behind. After the preliminary detention of all those involved in the crime, the collection of additional evidence was initiated, which would allow them to be charged and subsequently send the case to trial. Technology proved to be an important factor in the investigation, not only because of the images captured by CCTV cameras, but also because of the evidence recorded on the phone lines. A series of messages, calls, and audio recordings were discovered when examining the devices of the perpetrators of the crime. With this tool, it became clear that this was a planned murder. The communication between Juan Carlos Manzalve and Gustav Kajanic indicated that they were willing to get Agostina out of the way to save their own skins, but above all, to fulfill Ana Perales' terrible request to kill her. Only 20 minutes had passed since Gustavo Kajanic had informed Manzalve of Agostina's whereabouts. When the cab driver pulled up to the rental car place and picked up the black Chevrolet Tracker at 7:20 p.m., Agostina got into the car at 7:31 p.m. Manzalve called his accomplices and asked for help because he could not get into the car on his own. At 8:11 p.m., a black Chevrolet Tracker pulled up to the open field, followed 4 minutes later by a car with accomplices. It was then that the three killers completed their mission to kill Agostina. But there was still one more piece of information that made the situation even more outrageous. At 8:21 a.m., Manzalve called his wife, Ana Perales, to inform her that he had fulfilled his promise. 2 minutes later, the woman changed her social media status from single to in a relationship. In the early days when she found out about the infidelity, she announced on social media that she was no longer living with her partner. But once the murder happened, the situation changed. Investigators had enough evidence to charge all these people who not only joined together in a kind of criminal organization to end Agostina's life, but were also completely soulless people. A total of 5 people were arrested for Agostina Giffman's crime. Almost a year after the pretrial detention in September 2022, the trial began, with Ana Perales as the organizer of the crime, Gustav Kajanic as an accomplice, and Juan Carlos Manzalve, Enzo Manzalve, and Maximiliano Zapata as the main perpetrators of the murder. The court consisted of 12 civilians who listened carefully to the arguments of both the prosecution and the defense for 6 days. Among the evidence presented was that of Juan Carlos Manzalve, who in the dock was in a wheelchair without legs because they had been amputated as a result of a severe form of diabetes. The man immediately pleaded guilty and claimed he killed Agostina Giffman. Through tears, he said he was forced to do so. During his confession, Manzalve added that the motive for his murder did not coincide with the popular version. At this point, he put forward a version that was previously unknown to anyone. Juan Carlos said that Agostina had stolen from him 1 million Argentine pesos and an illegal substance he was selling. That is why he was looking for her. The man added that when he managed to talk to her, she promised to return the money, but she could no longer return the substance because her partner had consumed it. However, the prosecution rejected this version because they considered it a defense strategy used for the benefit of the accused. The problems the girl was suffering from were not the reason for the murder. In addition, there was sufficient evidence that Ana Perales' request to kill the girl was due to Manzalve's infidelity towards her. The trial continued, and when it was about to come to an end, an event occurred that interrupted the proceedings. In a remote restroom inside the courtroom, to which only the jurors had access, a threatening sign appeared: "Vote correctly, we know where you live." Because of the apparent threat, the trial had to be suspended because the popular belief was that the jury could no longer be objective. It was later revealed that the person who left the inscription in the toilet was a member of the jury panel, although the reason why he did so was never revealed. Be that as it may, after a short recess and the formation of a new jury, the trial was resumed. Again, the defendants testified with tears and false demonstrations of remorse. Juan Carlos Manzalve stuck to his guilty plea while trying to absolve the others of responsibility. Finally, in November 2022, Juan Carlos Manzalve, Enzo Manzalve, and Maximiliano Zapata were sentenced to life imprisonment for aggravated murder with violence, premeditated conspiracy of 2 or more persons, and murder of a woman. Ana Perales received the same sentence for incitement to commit the crime, and Gustavo Kajanic was sentenced to 13 years imprisonment for being considered a minor accomplice. What do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments, as well as watch other videos on the channel. See you in the next new video.